Good morning and welcome to NewsWare's Trade Talk for Thursday, June 4th. Getting into the action, we're taking a look at the S&Ps, which are down 0.41%. 0.4%, indicates that we are going to be having some negativity this morning. The market's really digesting a host of earnings announcements from last night. They weren't horrible, but the expectations were just so high that they didn't meet them on all levels, so you're seeing a little pullback this morning. But, you do have oil prices weakening. I mean, Israel and Lebanon reached the ceasefire agreement, which is positive. I mean, that really does help the prospects for the U.S. and Iran to come to some sort of agreement as well. On the economic calendar today, the key economic report being released is the jobless claims due out 1 hour before the opening bell. In corporate news, IBM and Google Cloud form a practice to deploy AI solutions. CrowdStrike announces a 4-for-1 stock split last night. Meta Platforms is delaying its release of its new AI model. JP Morgan CEO intends to discuss SpaceX in its upcoming IPO with a number of their high net individuals and high net clients next week. Could be something there. And Apple's got that WWDC conference starting Monday. That's something to keep an eye out on. On the corporate calendar today, we got shareholders meetings from Walmart, Netflix, Blue Owl, and Upwork. Something could happen there. On the earnings front, Broadcom, CrowdStrike, Viva Systems, Five Below, they're all trading lower after their recent earnings releases. After the bell today, we get earnings coming out from Cooper Companies, ticker COO, DocuSign, DOCU, Lululemon, LULU, Planet Labs, PL, and Samsara, which is ticker IOT. They're all scheduled to report. Okay, let's move on and let's take a look at the European markets this morning, see what type of action we're doing. Okay, with the DAX this morning, we're showing the DAX trading higher by 0.62%. That's 153 points. It's being led by gains in financial and software stocks. The FTSE's lower by 0.27%, with the weakness really due to energy stocks weighing on that market. The CAC in Paris is up 1.09%, with strength in luxury goods, aerospace, and defense companies. I like the fact that the aerospace stocks are trading higher. I'll get into that a little more. The Nikkei last night, you look at Asia last night. Asia was mainly in the red. The Nikkei fell 931 points. That's 1.36%. The key issue here is, one of the Bank of Japan governors, he really did indicate that that a rate hike is very likely next month. That's going to weigh on equities. Hong Kong, the Hang Seng finished lower by 1.48%. Tech shares sold off in Hong Kong. Shanghai, the Chinese market fell 0.64%, but it was weakened on trade-related issues because, President Trump did propose that 10 to 12.5% U.S. tariffs on certain imports. And then the European Union is out there with their Cybersecurity Act, and so, which would, kind of limit some Chinese companies' access to parts of the European market, which they're not too happy about. So these trade tensions are really what caused the weakness in Chinese stocks last night or this morning. Now we're taking a look at oil, and oil is weakening. We got the WTI down to $92.49. That's down 3.68%. You got Brent trading at $94.49. That's down 3.45%. So, yeah, we're definitely seeing weakness in oil this morning. Israel and Lebanon agreed to a ceasefire agreement. Trump stated yesterday that meaningful progress in negotiations with Iran could achieve an agreement as early as this weekend. That's causing the weakness. Stockpiles did fall yesterday. You had a draw of 7.97 million barrels, which is which is one of the largest draws this year. So that typically causes upward momentum when you see big draws in stockpiles. Okay, now we're going to get into earnings this morning. We're starting off with Five Below, ticker FIVE. Listen, the stock's down 8%. They beat by 44 cents. They did it on higher revenue. It wasn't a horrible report. Then you have crowdsourced CRWD. The stock's down 9.96%. They beat by 3 cents. They did it on higher revenue. Then you got Broadcom, AVGO, Apple, Victor, Grace, Oscar. The stock's down 14.56% this morning. They beat by 4 cents. They did it on higher revenue. The report was pretty good. There's only a couple minor issues in it that I saw, but I liked the Vago. I thought it wasn't bad. Okay, now we're moving on to what's coming out today after the bell. We got Lululemon, ticker LULU. EPS is $1.67. Expected move is 9.78%. We got Guidewire, GWRE. Their EPS is 79 cents. Expected move is 16%. And Samsara, ticker IoT, EPS is 13 cents. Expected move is 15.63%. Okay, now we're moving on to the economic reports hitting the tape this morning. We got to start off with the initial jobless claims, which is due out at 8:30 this morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. I mean, the expectations are for a reading of 212. Could come in a little less than that. Last week's figure came in at 215. 4-week moving average is 209. Okay. Also, you get the productivity and costs report coming out at 8:30 a.m. You got Fed speakers such as Richmond Fed Bank President Thomas Barkin speaking at 8:30 a.m. Then at 1:10 p.m. we got San Francisco Fed Bank President Mary Daly talking in terms of stocks hitting the tape this morning. Apple's big annual conference, where they talk about their new and latest products. They do it like twice a year. Once in September and once in June. So this is one to keep an eye out on. Again, active into the announcement and active into the event, and typically gets weaker after the event starts. Amazon announced a 10 billion euro commitment to a new AI warehouse in Europe. Palantir and Google. Palantir announced availability on Google Cloud Marketplace. That's positive. Dow Jones 30, IBM and Google launched a new cloud practice to help scale AI into production faster. Executives from NVIDIA are going to be sitting down at that B of A conference today at 11:40 a.m. There could be something. In terms of guidance news, Broadcom AVGO sees Q3 revenue approximately $29.4 billion. Street estimates $28.47 billion. So, that is an uptick. PVH Corp. They see Q2 EPS coming in $3 at $3.10. Street estimates $2.47. That's an uptick. Five Below raised their full year 2026 EPS view to $8.65 to $9.05. Street estimate has it at $8.29. That's a nice pop. Shareholders meetings, Walmart, Netflix, Blue Owl, Upwork, all worthwhile to keep an eye on. Ticker NU, their NU Holdings, their board approved a 1 billion share buyback. Okay, let's move on to today's pick of the day. And, I don't see anything that I'm really loving, but I'm going to go with Planet Labs PL. Remember, this is an aerospace company. Aerospace stocks are hot in Europe right now. So, their earnings are due out after the bell. Now, they're expected to lose 3 cents. Their expected move is 18.08%. But yesterday's call volume was 20,482 to put volume of 7,166. That's very positive on the call side. That's a 0.35% put call ratio. Open interest 146K to 106K. Again, positive. Major brokers, they like the stock, but their price targets are way lower than where the stock is trading. So there's a lot of premium built in here. Which to me means, listen, I can't hold this into earnings. But I think that we could see some weakness, some early morning weakness. I want to get in. I'm going to say 4180, but 4180 to 4250, somewhere around there is kind of like my range that I'm looking for. If it doesn't hit it, I won't trade it. But I do like Planet Labs. I do think we're going to see some momentum in the second half of the day, in the second half of the session in the afternoon. So that's my pick of the day, Planet Labs, ticker PL, Paul Larry. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the stocks that are hitting the tape this morning with, maybe some hot news in the last 15, 20 minutes or so. Visa and Braille explore private stablecoin settlement for institutional payments. American Express Delta adds more travel benefits to card members. Lamb Weston LW intends to close one of its production facilities. Trump calls a vote on war powers meaningless. It's because it's still got to go through the Senate, and if it does get approved, he'll probably veto it. GLBE, Globally Online, announced a 500 million share repurchasing plan. Singapore Airlines is looking for a deal on new airplanes. They got requests for proposals from out to Boeing and Airbus. Let's see what else we got. Costco reports May comparable sales up 12.5%. That's all I'm seeing this morning. Okay, now we're going to talk about yesterday's pick of the day, which was GitLab GTLB. I mean, the stock opened up at $30.83, which I thought was high because I was looking for a price of $29.75. And after it opened up at $30.83, it actually ran to $31.50. Then it collapsed and it fell down to $29.25. I got executed. And then next thing you know, it ran back to the 31 level by the close. So GitLabs was a nice winner, whether you got it at the opening price or you got in at my target entry price. I mean, GitLabs worked out very well, GTLB, so we're happy about that. All right, traders, that concludes today's podcast. You guys know what to do. Let's go out there and let's make some green.